The internet is broken. Business models and site design are entirely geared toward advertising and not the reader. On today's internet, advertisements are distracting, invasive, and overwhelming. In Den, the primary objective is quality content. Instead of ads, you may occasionally see a boosted post where a user has risked value to increase its visibility. Just like any other post, you can upvote or downvote to help evaluate the relevance to your community. The more engagement a boosted post gets, the less the booster pays. Depending on the evaluation process, a booster can get up to 85% of their money back, if the post is well targeted and engaging. In Den, quality content is the primary objective.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DENDAO governance call. Today is Thursday, September 1st, 2022, and my name is Dave. I'm here with Joe, founder and architect of Dragon Chain, and designer of a lot of the systems on Den.Social as well. We've got a pretty short agenda today. We're going to talk about voting, downvoting. We'll get into a little bit about how payouts work. I think it's worth going over that a little bit, just because as we are working through updates on the metrics page and the leaderboard, there's stuff so we can fix that are some things are being shown maybe misleadingly or incorrectly just on the status, on the display portion of it. And then there are some underlying mechanics that we can sort of lay out today as well, so there's a better understanding on how all of those systems play together, what stuff's for, what it's not for, and things like that. So should be a pretty short and sweet meeting today. If you have something that you want to talk about, there's a link to join the call in the agenda that is posted in the DENDAO layer. And you can also just leave a reply at the end of this. We'll hit refresh before we wrap up to make sure we didn't miss anyone. But other than that, hello, Joe. Welcome to the meeting.
How's it going?
So downvoting, voting in general, right? When there's, a combination of complex systems met with, a front end that's supposed to be easy to use, a lot of the way that it works under the hood isn't really exposed directly on the face. A lot of it's in the white paper if you want to dig into it, but it's kind of hard to understand initially sometimes why voting is the way it is, and why people receive specifically downvotes on some of their content that is perfectly good and great, right? So that's probably the first thing that we can talk about, and that should probably lead us into how payouts work and address some of the negative earnings representation in the metrics page, the way it's represented there.
Right.
So negative voting, it ain't so negative. It can be positive. It's probably always going to be there. And I just want to say that you should probably look at it as like a noise floor, right? Signal to noise ratio kind of thing, where you have a decentralized system that relies on consensus. And the way that you do that is you throw everyone's opinion into a bucket and see how it weighs out. That's kind of the analogy I had in my head. And so that's going to have a variety of opinions in it. Some of those opinions are going to be more informed than others. Some of those opinions are going to be more honest than others. Some of them are going to be a bot, potentially, right? Not even a person. So the trick is to expect those things and still allow the system to work and design to it, that kind of thing.
Right. Right. Because you might have, you have to think about it as it's a prediction market. So people might be evaluating content in the pure interest of earning for evaluation in that community, that they think they have a handle on what the community would like to see. So they're going to bet a good amount of energy and then that works into the consensus, whether that's positive or negative. You might be readily able to identify that this is, going to this content is going to be kind of spammy for this particular community. And then you might also have people who are weighing in without really betting anything more than one energy. I'm just going to say, you know what, that kind of content in this community is maybe not perfect. I'll downvote it. I'm not going to bet a lot on it because maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't want to reward that type of content in this community. So you would see less of it, right?
Right. So some of it's more signaling than it is like somebody saying "F you," or whatever.
Exactly. And it's, sometimes I will even feel for that I will sometimes vote up some things that might not be the absolute best content, but it's decent content. And so I'm like, okay, I'll put a little bit into it so that gets a little bit of reward versus, because when you're putting in the energy, it's not a tip, but it does affect payouts. So if you see some particularly good content, I mean, a lot of times I will put a lot of energy in the positive into it because I know it'll affect them in the positive, right?
Yeah, and especially when you're just growing a community or when someone's just learning the ropes and that, and especially if there's a low bar for what would be a quality or like what would be wanted in that layer, that'll evolve over time.
Right.
I'm going to bring up I am for IAMs on the call. Just checked in the lobby here, so I'm going to bring I am for IAM in. Hello there. Welcome back.
How you doing?
Thanks for popping in. We were just talking about voting and
Nice.
how those systems work and how the upvote, downvote things work, and some of the reasons for downvoting and all that. And I was just saying that, especially in new communities and stuff, there's some kind of content is better than nothing, right? So of course, in the beginning, you might get way more upvotes on stuff that's even low effort or low quality until later on, maybe that voting dries up a little bit because like I've done this where, after a while it's like, okay, we should probably try to raise the bar a little bit and like nothing personal, but let me try to be more selective about what I pick to push up or how much I voted up. If I'm putting in, like I'll try to put more energy on original stuff and I'll try to definitely put more negative energy on stuff that's abusive or maybe disingenuous, as far as not making it clear that this is an article that I found somewhere else. Not because maybe not even intentionally, but it could be misleading, misinterpreted. But all of that is my opinion, right? I don't know that everything that I vote on is the right way to vote on it. That's why we need more people to weigh in. And so I'm quite often wrong. It looks like Greg is here too. I'll go ahead and bring Greg up. Greg, how you doing there? Are you with us?
Yeah, doing great. Right. Can
cool.
You guys hear me all right?
Yep, totally. You didn't miss much. We got a pretty short agenda today. We're just talking about voting and how that works.
Cool.
So there's kind of my take, and like I don't have a very elaborate strategy on voting. It's just I go through. I've got energy to use up. I try to use it up, and I try to. I used to more often. Maybe I should get back to this, but I used to at least whenever I was downvoting something that wasn't necessarily bad, I would just leave a comment to be like, "Hey, this is fine, but it's actually the wrong layer, so I'm downvoting it in this context."
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So maybe we could all do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think introducing yourself. I'm so bad at this, and I need to do it. I need to make sure I'm going to that layer every day. And any new, members that have introduced themselves to Den, that's really a good place to, welcome them, pass some energy along, and tell them to invite their friends and family, and et cetera. Because everyone from every walk of life has something to add, and we want to make sure that they feel warm, invited, and share their knowledge, experience, and expertise in whatever it is,
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing is, every community's got to be sort of its own thing. So you can, if you're a bunch of introverts, you can say, hey, we're not going to necessarily throw you a ticker tape parade unless you say hello. But you can also have a layer that's more like, we are going to have a welcome party for every new member when somebody actually decides to join up. So
we talked at one point about doing something like using the introduce yourself layer as a tool to get people through some jumping through hoops so they understood the system before they could go out and do stuff. And also, I wonder halfway if we shouldn't just say everybody who joins automatically gets a post, or they have to post there first or something, right?
There's if you want to relate it to video games, that's pretty common, where you have like your initial tutorial mode where you go through a short little, like, you got to jump through these wickets and do these things, that's little hand holding, and then once you've performed these actions, then go nuts, because then you know how the stuff works.
Right.
Sure. The classic one being like Elder Scrolls 5, right? Everybody who's ever played Elder Scrolls 5 probably has run through that tutorial dungeon more times than they can count. Like, you can picture that bear right now.
Yeah, that's your famous tunnel save, is where, whether it was Elder Scrolls 5 or 4 or 3, you get through the little intro, and it's very common. If somebody wanted to start a new character, they would have their tunnel save to be like, okay, skip all that, because that's 2 hours. So something like that.
Well, you're only popular 4 times in your life: when you're born, when you die, when you get married, and when you join DIN.
There you go. I love it.
So
I try to give a bunch of energy to them too.
It sounds like a pretty fun marketing slogan, but it's kind of true. Like, everybody hears it early, like, and in crypto token speaking, number go upland, where everybody only cares about the money. That's like a statement that gets people fired up about greed. But when you're on Den, like we're an early group of people who are going to be in this community, and as long as nothing happens to any of us, OG status remains, right? Like, everybody who's here right now has a hand in shaping how this grows into a big.
That's very true. You're getting a little bit quiet there. I can barely hear you, but I agree. Yeah, everybody. That's the point. Well, it's one of the points of rewards being relatively higher in the beginning for early adopters, is because if you're there before it's easy, if you're there before it's convenient, before it's widely adopted, you're putting more effort in than the people that are going to come later and reap the rewards of that. So the ownership of the layers, participating in the voting, everybody definitely make sure that you participate in the LCPs. If you're on DIN using it, you'll have a lore balance over time that'll grow. Your matter that you earn is automatically staked for you. It's automatically enrolled into a rewards program, is what that means. And you get rewarded with the lore points that you use to vote on layers, and that's how you become an owner. And if you participate in that system, over time, you will become more and more of an owner of the various communities and the platform itself. So yeah, totally, seeding ownership that way is pretty useful. What's that? What would be cool to do?
Actually help me make sure that I got to every vote eventually, is if you could download a calendar event for it. Like, I feel like that would be a thing. And then you can do that with the CSV, so it wouldn't be too hard to do.
Yeah. Right now, it's like, it's not something that, is an everyday thing for everyone. So just remembering to check in on the governance tab right now is the key.
Oh yeah. I would love to get a text message from you guys, like anytime there was a vote that was about to close, for example.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll remember to text you. I'll just get my phone.
I mean, that would be notification. Yeah. Hey, new vote.
Yeah. Notifications needs a rework anyway, but that's a good idea. Yeah. The governance participation rate could be helped with that, because I notice a lot of times it's hard to get 50%. I think almost every vote.
You only hear about them after you hear about them, and it's because the outcome's being announced. You're like, yeah, man, I wish I would have remembered to do that.
Yeah, right now you just got to check the governance tab. Every couple of days really is all it takes. But But yeah, notifications on that. Maybe rewards for participating. Maybe I'm not sure, but that could be something that is useful. But speaking of rewards, I want to talk a little bit about the metrics page, how it works today.
Yes.
Excuse me, my throat's a little scratchy. So there's been a question on two things. So the metrics page, if you go to your profile and you click on payouts, that's the metrics page that I'm talking about. And there's overall metrics for Den on there. And there's also individual to you and all of your posts, metrics there. And you can go in there and you can see how many downvotes you got on a piece of content, how many upvotes you've gotten, how much energy you've gotten. And after the payout cycle, you'll see how much matter you were credited or awarded or mined from that content. And every now and then, you'll see a negative number pop up, right? And I guess the most important thing I wanted to say about that is at no point are you getting matter taken from you out of your wallet. So whatever you earned, it's in your, you've deposited, you've earned, you've mostly earned. And there's a matter balance called MTR that is in your wallet. And that doesn't, the algorithm, the mining algorithm doesn't take from that at all. The only time that you would have it affect you at all, from my understanding, is that, let's say you had 3 or 5 different posts on the same day, and maybe they're in different communities or whatever. You're just doing your thing. And one of them, for whatever reason, was wildly unpopular in the particular community that you posted it in, right? Maybe you went into a business layer and you just went out of your way to talk shit about that particular business. And since it's a business layer, they're like, we're not here for that. And the community didn't appreciate it and they downvoted you, right? That might show up as a negative matter reward for that piece of content. But that's only going to affect your overall payout at the end of the day, right? So it might mitigate some of the rewards you got for the other content when you do the calculation for the mining, but it's not taking money away from you. And the second thing is some of them may not even be represented correctly on the, like, rendered correctly, while it's correct under the hood and your payouts are correct. Sometimes it's a beta system. It says in red at the top, it's a beta system. Let us know if there's any issues. So there are a couple of cases where I've seen like the votes didn't add up the way I expected them to and stuff like that. So keep that in mind that we're revamping that whole system anyway. So some of the things that were just being rendered wrong or misleadingly or confusingly, the priority wasn't to fix it until, okay, we knew we were getting a revamp anyway. So let's just wait until then.
So
that's what I got on that.
If you have a bad fur day or something and you just go in and piss everybody off because you're throwing temper tantrums all over the layers you're in, and everybody's like, dude, what's wrong with him? But downvote. And then the next day you come back and you're cool. Like, you're not going to get a negative balance because you end with
No, yeah. Worst case is, worst case scenario is you don't get rewarded for that day, for that one period.
So it's not good. Like your point you're trying to make is it's not going to, it's not going to affect your already accumulated balance. Once it's in your wallet, it's in your wallet.
Right, exactly. So monetarily, economically, worst case scenario is you don't get a payout, it goes to zero. But it does, and it can, if the layer has reputation turned on, it can affect your ability to post again later. This is one of the mitigations for bots and trolls and things like that, is while you may be able to come in initially and do your thing, after you get a certain number of evaluations, which is set, the lot holders set that per layer. If they have that enabled, you might lose the privilege of even voting in that layer, or you may lose the privilege of replying, or you may more commonly you'll lose the privilege of posting, but you can still reply to other posts and things like that. So there are reputation implications, but typically, like, you're going to get downvotes always. It's basically just going to be a noise floor that you have to take into, you just have to take that with a grain of realistic existing on Earth with humans, is people aren't going to like what you say all the time.
Right. Unless you're
some of them are more real than others.
I mean, you shouldn't worry about whether people like what you say as long as you're saying genuine things without like any intent to agitate. You're speaking your truth, and your truth has any merit on something controversial, half the people aren't going to like it anyway. Right?
Yeah, and I guess that was the wrong way for me to say it too, because people shouldn't be voting or evaluating based on if they like what you say in the first place. So if you're evaluating, if you really want to earn more rewards and earn more matter for your evaluations, which you do, that's the whole point of adding the energy to the energy system is there so you can wager something so that you can bet in a marketplace based on your skill of evaluating content, right? So if you really want to make the most money, the most rewards, and earn the most matter, what you're going to have to start doing is evaluating in the true sense of objective evaluation. Is this related to the layer? Is it is it in the tone or the vibe that this layer likes or appreciates? Is it completely out of the scope of what we want to even talk about here? And then to what degree does it meet all of those requirements? And that should go into some sort of like
readership
how far
disagrees with you, likes it because it's a good point for the other side of your debate. You know,
right?
If it's because to have that debate, then you should probably upvote it, even if you disagree with it.
And, and to the content creator too, they can kind of on their own evaluate. Okay, I have this type of content, and there is a competition between, you know, there are multiple photography or visual art layers. There are multiple art layers, multiple crypto layers, and some of them are more appropriate communities for this kind of content. So, you know, I've noticed that a lot of the people posting, you know, crypto charts and analysis are posting them in Trading Lounge instead of cryptocurrency, which is an, you know, totally reasonable, good, interesting thing. So
I tried to push that a little bit in the beginning, and I'm glad it worked just because I wanted there to be a difference between those two layers. It wasn't that I was trying to like relegate one or like push one off to the other. It was more that I wanted there to be a distinction between the two. That kind of thing.
I think the invisible hand of social media will do that for you to a certain degree, right? Like, you know, you go on ETH Dev, it's sparser traffic than Ethereum on Reddit or whatever, you know, like for people who still go to that terrible platform. But you're also going to go on ETH Trader, you're going to get charts. Like, people automatically are going to differentiate these, or they're not going to be very popular. So,
right.
And you're also going to run into different voters too, depending on which community you go to, because I don't subscribe to everything. I subscribe to a bunch, maybe too much because I can't keep up with it all. Like my feed, I'll get through a bunch of it and I'll be like, oh, maybe I'm subscribed to too many. I don't know. But typically people aren't as subscribed to as many as even I am. And I'm not subscribed to all of the layers on Den. So you're going to have different people seeing your content and engaging in it and voting on it, depending on where you're posting it. So it might be worth your time to try it. Okay, one day, let's say you're Jacob Wayne had a great post, a couple of them, about his experiences on Den and about how he's, over time he's trying to post things to see how it plays out. Maybe not the same, or maybe the same. Cross posted to several layers, you might see that it's more accepted in one or the other, or it's more wanted in one or the other.
And you also have, there are other strategies that come into play, like say, the lot holder evaluator strategy, which is if I hold a significant amount of lot in one layer that competes with a different layer that I don't hold as much lot in, I am likely more, I want more content in the layer that I hold more lot in. So I might upvote stuff there more readily, or at least put more energy into what I do upvote over there than I might on the other. That's just
I ran into that myself whenever I was traveling. When I was in Iceland, I was posting some stuff to, like, I don't know which one it was. It was whichever one I had lot in is what it ended up being. Because I was like, should I go to photography and whatever, or should I go to, it was travel and explore or travel and photography is what I was trying to figure out what I wanted to post to.
Or
and
outdoors.
I I don't know, because these are photos and they're fantastic. Like, they're not fantastic, but they're cooler than what I usually take, so they're good to me. But it's more about traveling and exploring, and also I'm owner in Travel and Explore that's where I'll go.
Well, we know you, right? Like we know you, so it's not just a photo from that place. It's a photo that you took from that place. So when we see it, we know that this is Dave's experience.
It's original.
And that's actually valuable in a new kind of way because we know you're you in a much more verifiable way.
Yeah. Is that a volcano really erupting, or is that just the news? Like, no, Dave went over there and it's erupting. It's actually true. Yeah, it's
and we're validating data. Ask him about it when he gets back. So like let's upvote these things we don't forget.
Yes.
So other
that Dave and Forrest Gump. It was like a great meme.
That was fantastic. That was good.
So good.
I didn't expect that one, but as soon as I think it was, I saw it first. Crypto Curious said it on Twitter, and then somebody, Rockstar or somebody else said it on the post on Den. And you know what? I had the hat, I had the hair, and it was everything. It was perfect.
Yeah. I didn't see it. Why did I not see this?
Oh yeah, no, it was.
I'll
show you later. I have to go find it, but it was it was a picture of Forrest Gump running. And the scene was like, I just felt like running. And he would growing out his hair a lot, and he had the trucker hat on, you know what I mean? And it was that with the video I took of me walking away from the Geyser, the Go Geyser Go video. And yep.
That's hilarious.
It looked just like me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and other owners of layers are going to want to think about it. If you are a lot holder, especially if you're a substantial, like 10, 20% lot holder in one of these layers, well, one of the things on the payouts that you'll see are these. It looks like dust payouts, basically, from the different layers that you have ownership. Sometimes I'll get up to like a whole matter, from just owning a part of a particular layer if it went really well that day. So owners want to pull in creators and pull in people and evaluators too to their layer, and so they're going to, in theory, you have to think, well, yeah, they're gonna probably be dumping a lot of their own energy into posts in the layers they own, because that helps them directly, and that's kind of the way it works.
I still want to see an NLP battle bots layer. Like I feel like people should just have one layer where only battle bots are allowed to post, and they just go in and fight each other.
Yeah, that'll totally be possible with the additional smart contract stuff. We had one round at like a first pass of smart contract integration, but the vision of that is to have API points to hit from, even if you're running it on your own server, to have a bot that's interactive in chat, or maybe it is respond to DMs, or maybe it's in your layer is configured to be a helpful little robot that says, hey, it looks like you're trying to do this, like Clippy or something like that. Whatever you come up with. It's
going to follow like a betray bot strategy for like you can do game theoretic based designs on them. And it's like, this is a betrayal bot. He's going to first be nice and then stab you in the back in the replies. Let's see how he does against reasoned argument bot, who always does good logic.
Yeah. And that'll just be one more thing that is, that'll be in your upvotes and downvotes whenever you're looking into your metrics page and stuff. You'll see the bots voting, and on the leaderboard, theoretically, that's actually kind of interesting, because then you could see, like, what if a bot is just doing a better job, like an AI bot is just doing a better job in the conspiracy theories layer in coming up with actual conspiracies that are provable for some reason, because it's a bot and it's not afraid to say it, so it just does. And that shows up in your leaderboard.
Somebody figures out that siding with betray bot, even though it's going to betray you, is a good strategy or something. Like, it'd be kind of interesting to see come out on a leaderboard.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, man. Like once like way more tools are installed, stuff like that gets me into thinking like, D&D, tabletop gaming layer, a layer itself could be a game, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had, it's a back burner idea at this point, but I had this whole thing where, what if we had a completely separate music app that's just like, Denizen Radio or something. And to submit your music, you would have to post an original song or into the music layer. And then when someone listened to it, they could literally be logged in on this app through their Den account, and they could add energy they could tip an artist, right? And then it would just it would just go and tip the post in the layer. Yeah, stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah, the main thing is though is just like, especially with more voting and more adoption, and as we onboard more people, you're going to get more and more up and down votes. So it's a little bit weird coming to Den from places like Reddit or places like Facebook, where a lot of it is emotional voting. You know, you're clicking on something because you feel a certain way, and you want to make them know that you feel a certain way and make them feel bad because you voted it down.
So you
that's the wrong attitude.
Vote it down harder.
Vote it down harder. You click on it really hard. Yeah. So, you know, that's not the idea here. The idea here is more along the lines of, you know, what Reddit was envisioned in the beginning, what it kind of was, which is this, hey, let's all just sort. It's just sorting, right? It's sorting algorithm.
Let's see which one of these things fits the topic best. And the interesting thing about the upvoting and downvoting emotionally, I always thought Facebook and their refusal to put a dislike button in was stupid. I think they should have put a dislike button in and taken away the like button. So the only way to show support was to comment.
Oh, speaking of features that should have been in a long time ago, it looks like Twitter's leaning into that edit button finally. They must have broken the glass. The single feature that everybody's been asking for.
So the $1 billion lawsuit, that's what we're going to get out of this. We're not going. They'll probably settle out of court. All right, I'll pay you nothing and you'll pay me nothing, but you shall have the edit.
But you get an edit button. Yeah, I feel like that's been something that's been kept, like, just in case we need to make people happy, we really piss them off one day. We'll just save this thing that we know people want for later on.
The bots could collapse it. The bots could collapse it and just demand edit after edit after edit after edit.
Well, we'll see how they implement it. I'm sure.
Add images on edit or something. Like you could start with a screenshot and a URL that's like one character off from the link you wanted to show. And it could be like cute puppies, right? You go and you delete the cute puppies video, fix your URL so that it's this controversial post from somewhere they didn't want to let through, and then it's already viral. You know, like that is stuff that I think that they're not accounting for.
Well, you know, with Den, we have the ability to edit posts. It costs you a bit to edit it, the longer you wait to edit it or how many times you've edited it. But it's also all on chain, and you can see the history of the edits, and so you can see if there's any shenanigans and things like that.
That was one of the key pieces that we looked at when we designed it, was how do we avoid someone posting something that's an obvious positive comment and then switching it later to be something negative. And the first was history on chain, and the second was the more edits and the longer away from the origin of the content, the more expensive it gets. So, you know, it's linear on the number of edits. I think it's the number of edits times the time.
And that makes sense, because I've edited something from like ages ago before, and I spent like my daily allotment of energy editing it.
It's very expensive after a while, right?
Twitter is leaving it a 30-minute window, and they're just going to say 30 minutes. No,
I mean, that's enough. I tried out Twitter Blue for a little while just because I like to kick the tires on stuff, and they had the edit button there for a while. While I was still paying for it, I stopped paying for that. But for the few months that I had it, they had the edit button there, but only if you paid them, and it timed out after like I want to say it was like a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. It was pretty short. You know, it was just enough for if you had an obvious typo and you're like, oh shit, I meant to say, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. I mean, and that's useful. Although I also think it's fun to just reply to a tweet with an asterisk correction. Like, what's the big deal with that?
Well, that's because you have a strange sense of humor, Greg, and you're easily entertained.
It's best to like say if you can say something controversial and then fix it in the reply. Right.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, I can't edit. What I meant to say.
I'm kidding. You all convinced me. JK is your edit. Yeah. You just come back and do J/K.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you can say, you know,
trial balloon feature.
I love ISIS. And then in the reply, it's like the band, right? I mean, the band, obviously.
Obviously. But nobody looks at the replies, right? Yeah. So they'll never see it.
Or like you say, I love ISIS, and just leave it, let it sit, and then right at the buzzer, you go edit it, and you say not with the clown emoji. Like that would be like
bring not back from the 90s. Not
yes.
Okay, cool.
So trolling the hell out of Twitter and proving the Den's better would be entertaining.
So what on the topic of voting, upvotes, downvotes, payouts, how that's represented, things like that. Can anybody think of other like commonly misunderstood or common questions about that system that we could discuss right now?
I mean, there's a quorum. That's interesting to me too. That like say, I would like it to be
That's important actually. Yeah.
We needed more data, and we needed to understand better how people would use the system, and we're getting close to that. But essentially, right now, the quorum is set at 13 for every layer, which is potentially it's potentially not exactly perfect, but it's still relatively effectively puts a threshold on small layers. So if you have a small layer where you're not getting enough people weighing in, you're not going to get as much of a reward as if you have a bigger layer because the consensus is broader. And it's because we just put this quorum in the front of every piece of content where your consensus times your quorum, which it is the number of unique voters over 13. So it can be, and maxing at 1. So if you get 13 voters, then the quorum is met, and you just have a 1 times whatever your consensus is, times however much the total energy applied, positive and negative. So if the consensus is positive and yet 90% of the energy was negative, you still get a good payout because it's interesting. We put that in, and I think that was one of the bigger, better changes that we ever made.
It was actually, it was because it had to do with mitigating malicious whales.
And basically emotional malicious whales.
Yeah, emotional malicious whales. And so because what was happening is like people were coming out and they were emotionally downvoting something because they didn't like the person, and they were going to say, well, I'm going to show you, or whatever they thought. And it was actually doing economic harm to people based on the rewards they would have gotten if they hadn't been such a dick. And so to mitigate that was the plan, the change that was put in. So if you notice, there's like a bunch of energy. You can vote more than once. There's a bunch of energy on a post. You don't actually know if that's positive or negative energy. It just shows up as an absolute number, right? You can think of it as a positive number, but it's just the number of energies put in there. So if you come around and you dump a bunch of negative energy on something, but you're doing it not because you know that that's not good for the community, you're just doing it because you want to stick it to the man or whatever, and you think that that's the man. Well, what you're really doing is you're rewarding them, because the other evaluators in that community, assuming that they weigh in logically and they're not emotionally driven like you are, they're going to vote appropriately, and then your negative energy is going to be converted to more of a payout to that person in general. So, so there's that. And so the more votes you get, the more, the closer you are to meeting that quorum. And that's why it's important, if you are going to weigh in, if you're not going to, even if you don't have a bunch of energy, weighing in at least 1 vote helps with the quorum, right? So it's good to vote even if you don't have a bunch to put down. If it's, if it's something that was posted 6 hours ago and it's gotten plenty of upvotes already, or you don't know if they're upvotes, but it's got plenty of energy already, you should probably weigh in so that you can influence which direction that energy is being applied. Even if it's just a single vote. So the more people that do that, the more awesomer everything becomes.
And we combined, if anybody knows about wisdom of the crowd, where they do specifically call out that to avoid whale issues, it is one person, one vote, right? For consensus. And so we are taking that on the consensus side, but then using the energy and the scarcity of energy on the market size, which is how we measure apples to apples when we're comparing, a cryptocurrency post to a photography post, right? I mean, how do you know which is the more important post overall in Den? It's like, well, the size of the energy prediction market. So.
Yes, indeed. I'm trying to think. So there's the quorum and consensus. There's the fact that even if you don't have a bunch to weigh in on, you're still really helping out the community by weighing in with your evaluation, even if it's just one energy. There is the fact that even if for some reason you do get a bunch of downvotes and your payout says something like, has some negative amount of matter that isn't taking any matter from you at all. That's only affecting your rewards for that one day. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe it's not your fault. Maybe that happens, Right. Den's a very natural system, as natural as it possibly can be, which I think is a good thing, right? Because we have plenty of unnatural systems running the world. Yeah. And we don't need any more of those. We try something a little bit different.
Direct engagement too right now matters on kind of a meta sense as well. Like, yes, these are the systems that are going to run the future, but right now noticing things about them comes from using them. Like, so each of us that's here now early dogfooding this will have some insights just by, going through the practice of doing the basic things that the application does every day.
Right.
We'll see things. We'll see things, and we'll be able to make it better.
That's what we're here for today. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Lay a solid foundation.
Yeah.
I think one of the with the risk of sounding like I'm trying to put brakes on something that I'm not, I will say that I think one of the risks of ballooning too quickly with a user base or with people onboarding onto a new platform is that typically you get massive success from one demographic, and then that's what sets the tone for the entire platform for the rest of its life. Yeah. And so if the way that we're sort of taking one step at a time and growing slowly, I think is a major benefit, even if it's painful in the beginning, because it's like, oh man, more people should be here.
That's an interesting thought, Dave. What if we took it a step further? What if it was literally like invite only from somebody who's already here after a certain time?
Well, that's kind of what Facebook did, right? It was like edu email address only, right, or something like that. Or that's what, and then Gmail. Google did the same thing with Gmail. It was invite only, and you get a whole gigabyte for free.
Right, and
for storage.
Clubhouse was invite only for a while.
Yeah,
right. Like,
Clubhouse was invite only, and then they would actually remove. They would remove your access if somebody that you invited was a dickhead.
See, that's actually a marketing ploy as well, because wait a minute, I didn't get invited, man. That's the place to be. But you got to get invited.
The grass can't be greener if there's no fence.
There you go.
I mean, it would be worth too even considering. Hey, what if we told people that there's only a little bit of time left that you can get a new account. So come get a new account. After that, we convert to invite only, and we have however many thousand accounts. So
thank you for all the open beta testers. We are about ready to start. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Plus, seriously, there's so much of that, like Eric Cartman, you can't come into my amusement park marketing strategy.
My authority. Yep.
Cool. So before we get out of here, is there anything that, since we got a few people here, let's talk about briefly, if we can, what we could do for onboarding. I know I Am has mentioned it a couple of times, and maybe it was Greg, or maybe it was both of you, starting a trend of like, bring 2 people, that kind of thing, or maybe there's something we can rally behind, like, the fact that the competing networks are having issues. I don't want to take advantage of them, but if there's a marketing opportunity to say, hey, if those didn't work out for you, maybe check out Den.Social, that could be leveraged. As much as I like the slow, I wanted to follow up my previous thing by saying, as much as I like the slow growth, because I think it is a really good exercise in seeding decentralized communities with less bias, as little as possible. I also do want to push for like, hey, there's a bunch of people over on Truth Social that don't really like it over there anymore. There's a bunch of people on the Twitch thing that don't really like it over there anymore. There's a bunch of people on Twitter that aren't really digging it anymore. You know what I mean? So what can we do to hook into that sort of like, this ain't quite doing it for me. What else is out there?
I think one of the key things for me to help with this, if I can, is like we just started this thing with Rivet, with this Built with Rivet partnership, which we actually have ad money set out, like, and our marketing people love to do like testimonials about the projects that are on Rivet and just talk about them. If we did that with, like, we could totally get just like denizens talking about whether like Den.
That could be a good contest.
Boosted. Yeah, that might be a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we use the Den.
Spitballing. I was just throwing that out there. So.
Yeah, we could do that and use Den's system to figure out where the awards go.
I think seizing the moment as well, because with all there's a good chunk of the population that is frustrated with the censorship. Example of YouTube. Well, we always got to watch our language, so that everyone's starting to speak in parables and these kinds of things. Well, I better kind of tone down this post a little bit because I don't want the censors to get me or get ghosted and these types of things. And that's really the area for me that I think we can seize the moment and seize the time, because that's only going to get worse as in America as the politics heat up.
That's true too, and that also, getting a variety. I wasn't thinking about this, but I am now. But getting a variety of what people that have different priorities, that care about different things. Some people are only going to care about how much money they can take out of the system, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are going to find fulfillment in building that system and not taking the money out or the matter out of the system, and actually using it for what it's meant for, as far as building lore and ownership and influence and the ability to maintain your community more appropriately. Some people are going to not care about any of that, and they're just going to want a place they can go and not feel like they have to double think every time that they speak, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so getting all of those types of people, because that's who you need evaluating, is all different types of people that care about different things.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think there's obviously there's a unique common thread through Den that I hope we can preserve as we grow. Right. This idea that we're not here to play information warfare games. Right. Like this isn't a place where we're going to come and we're going to create a secret lair that is meant to sabotage the conversations happening in this other lair.
Yes.
That's not how this is going to work.
Right.
And that's something that I think comes from the promise of community ownership, right? Like, you don't want to do that to these people that are essentially this community that you're creating. And it's not Reddit you're attacking anymore. It's these people who dedicate their time to building this layer.
Right. Well, see, and that goes back to, like, we have all these tools now. We have anonymous posting, not suitable for work viewing. We have all of these tools that can allow somebody to come in, speak their mind, do it anonymously, understanding that they're not going to, receive anything for that per se, but they're going to, you know what I mean? We have these tools. We have the things that others don't have. Telegram. You gotta have a phone number. A valid phone number to be able to get on there. There's kind of KYC and these kinds of things.
There are ways around that, by the way.
True. There are, but not for the average novice user. But that's, to me, where ideas flourish when there's free thinking and free thought and free speech, and that's where people can actually come together. Now, others are going to get their feathers riled up, and it's going to become a war of words, and there's not going to be a view that anyone's going to come to come to an agreement from per se. However, as DIN grows and the numbers mass, then consensus is met by the number of views and clicks and energy that's put up or down on a post. And that's where the truth is more
like, we're going to be proving the world that we're proving back to the world that right now is run by people who think that we are not all mature enough to handle a conversation that they don't moderate for us. Right? Like, that's the wrong idea that we're disproving. And it's I like where you're at, because that's like sort of the core value proposition to people who feel like right now I have to live with chilled speech, because it's a good and important sacrifice that we need to make, because there are other bad people out there who have weaponized this against us. Like, that's not the world, but it is a really good fear narrative, and we can spin a hope narrative that will eat that narrative's lunch.
And there's countless people on YouTube or wherever that say, okay, well, part one, here's our show on part one. Now for part two, you got to go elsewhere because, this channel, I get censored. So if you want to get the real me or the real information or the detailed information that can't be spoken or written on this site, then go to part two on Den.Social. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is
all their videos on YouTube.
Yeah, and this is why people, like We Are Change, he, what is his name, Lukowski, says, well, that's why I've created my own channel on my website, because then I own it and I can say as I please, or
right.
And but they're using the other platforms to funnel growth on their own website, or you know what I mean?
Well, and I think the crazy thing though is they're not going to have the impact that they want ever, because of that wall, because it's not got the support of organizational level money. But two, like, if they ever did start to have that impact, they quickly find out how power got taken down.
That's right. They become an echo chamber on their own website.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And with
again,
them,
right.
Again,
that. Bingo.
So
yeah.
Yep. And I think, that's probably a lot of what we can start talking about, as far as like getting people to think of like, oh, well, this is it's a safe space in a sense, but like not the kind of safe space where you're not allowed to say or do anything. It's one of those where you can, as long as you're willing to get banned by saying something, you can say it. If the community comes together and says, no, you're actually just a bad person and we don't want you here, that's still going to happen.
Right.
It's not like
before you are vanquished. Like, there's not going to be some AI in the background that doesn't even tell you the rules, checking out.
Right, but you're not gonna get preemptively kicked for saying a word. It's going to be a community decision. It's going to be It's going to be a evaluator decision. It's going to be people that are weighing in, and it's okay. It's okay to not be liked in some communities, or to not hang out in some places.
A layer full of people who wouldn't make friends with anybody in the layer that you just offended. Go hang out with them instead because they like that.
I guess just pointing out the ways that we're different that's a pretty good idea.
And that's where you go back to when you can explain DIN. You can say, you're being censored on this site, but you can speak your mind on DIN freely and openly. I guess that's where I think that I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I can imagine millions on this site, and you can be at the 30,000 foot level and you can look down and say, wow, this is where consensus is. This is where the majority of the population, what they believe in, they could, okay, well, so the majority of the population isn't extreme right or isn't extreme left. It's somewhere in the middle, and you'll be able to dial that down and see it on DIN. That's where I see amazing value from it, and it not becoming such a giant echo chamber like, say, Truth.
Yeah, and that's something that's important too, and not to go down that route too far, but I think it's important to be able to just see what people are saying.
System, honestly.
Like I disagree with this particular demographic on things, but I still want to go see what they're saying. Or, you know, I typically align with this demographic, so I want to go to their layer and see what they're saying. And yeah, it's just good to know what's going on in the world.
And then the next point is, I think, where Den can really come into play that you're not going to get from, say, Truth Social. Truth Social is basically a bunch of Americans, in my opinion. I haven't been on there. I shouldn't maybe come to
Truth Social accounts are actually pretty. I mean, honestly, you got to be fair to these guys. They say good stuff. They say they're regular people. You know, like,
right?
There are probably fewer bots there than there are on Twitter, but they're also like they're of a certain persuasion because they were recruited that way.
That's right. That's right, and that's where I was going. I was going to say, you know, Den has the unique ability of being, you know, bringing in people from, say, Russia and Ukraine and from Japan and from wherever, all over the world, and bringing it into a place for open discussion where it hasn't recruited from, say, a specific political thought group,
right?
Such as
Truth. And it hasn't philosophically retreated from the notion that you know that universalism is right. That human beings have a common core experience, that regardless of your other traits, you're human.
So then the question is, exactly. So we agree on that premise that this is, we kind of want to be a site for all and not just gather a bunch of people so it becomes an echo chamber. So then the question is, how do we get that word out to everybody that, hey, everybody is welcome, and you're not going to be censored. You're actually going to find out how, maybe as a community, as it grows, what consensus is on your points or thoughts, kind of like a meter.
I would love to,
you know what I mean?
I would love to say that there's like a magic bullet, but I think it's more like we just need a lot of lead. You know, we got to fire off messages and try to recruit people and try to tell them about it and just keep doing it.
I mean, you could use this model for that very reason, to say, I'm going to make a factual statement and everybody can weigh in on the consensus of it. And, you know, rather than having a fact checker, if you get enough consensus, you know, it's not going to be that this is true, but it literally will be that most people think this is true, right?
Yeah, you could say something like, Trump won in 2020. Prove me factually correct or factually wrong on Den.Social.
Right.
And why did I ask for you to prove me right or wrong on Den.Social? Is because Den works this way. It does X, Y, and Z.
You know, it'd be cool, actually. Think about this. You got a lot of social screenshots. It'd be cool if we had like a photo mode for any given post, where we could really just like stage it nicely and make it look good on a given platform. If you could perfectly screenshot a Den post to set up a Twitter post, for example, that would be a helpful tool to get people on Den.
Yeah.
I guess I don't follow you. What do you mean?
So, like, if I'm going to go over on Twitter and I'm going to say something about something that happened on Den, the best way to make sure people see it is not to share a hyperlink, because unless it's one of the ones that passes their validation, they're going to show the link without the preview.
Gotcha.
And nobody hits those because they're looking for the big box images, right? Like, you can't even post a YouTube video and have it show up in someone's feed. They have to click in to see it.
Yeah, we have the beginnings of it where if there is an image, it'll show that. If there's not an image, it'll show the layer image.
Right.
We had asked, but it was like, say, not necessarily scalable right now, but you could theoretically have a headless service that would effectively build a screenshot of your post, or put an image up that looks like the post. And
because on Twitter, for example, screenshots, they go on the feed, and if they're 16:9, you get them framed perfectly. Like, you can actually use it as a way to make sure that people scrolling past look at something you intend for them to look at before they realize they've done it.
That's partially working now. I know it works on Facebook a little bit better than Twitter for some reason. Like, Facebook will actually take the image of the layer or the image that's posted attached, whereas Twitter typically just takes the main Den.Social somehow. I don't know why it's different, but
I don't know.
Yeah,
because they have something that they do in front of it that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I do remember that. And we could use something like, we could just integrate image magic or something in it where we would just
right. If I would have forced something down Twitter, my Twitter feed's throat, I take a screenshot and I talk about how I wanted them to see what's in that below because they wouldn't show you this link preview, and then show the link.
Yeah.
Like this is a way that at least for me, I would be able to sort of weaponize my existing footprint to get people over here. Not weaponize, like more like liberate, but. I think there are ideas like that too. Like my ideas are not the only ideas. This is just an example of one that might help. And I think it's going to be a conglomeration of those over time. With all of us participating that get us there eventually.
Yeah. All right, so let's wrap this up. We're an hour in, I guess. But thank you. I wanted to talk about the marketing angle a little bit about what what people might tune into and what to talk about. I think talking about how Den is different than the other platforms and how it doesn't just copy something else and try to throw a censorship-free label on it, and then maybe that gets shut down anyway or over what do you call it, moderated anyway. Or however we want to phrase that, that's different. But yeah, that was good. So let's wrap up. So this is every Thursday at 3 Eastern. I don't know what time that is for everybody else, but in Florida it's 3:00 in the afternoon. And come back next week and we'll talk about Den. We'll have more LCP stuff going on by then to talk about, I'm sure. And catch the other shows that are on Den as well. This isn't really a show; it's just a meeting to talk about Den stuff. But there's some shows. Today we had World Blockchain Roundtable. We talked blockchain fundamentals. Tuesday there's Super Happy Dragon Lucky, which is an updates show and AMA on Dragon Chain and Den.Social. And then I have my Wednesday show at 9 a.m. That I Am for Am has become a regular on. So thank you for that, sir.
You're welcome.
And that is in its own layer, Coffee with Den, and it's over on Odyssey now as well. So check out all those things. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
Cheers.
The internet is broken. Business models and site design are entirely geared toward advertising and not the reader. On today's internet, advertisements are distracting, invasive, and overwhelming. In Den, the primary objective is quality content. Instead of ads, you may occasionally see a boosted post where a user has risked value to increase its visibility. Just like any other post, you can upvote or downvote to help evaluate the relevance to your community. The more engagement a boosted post gets, the less the booster pays. Depending on the evaluation process, a booster can get up to 85% of their money back, if the post is well targeted and engaging. In Den, quality content is the primary objective.